Welcome everybody to Cabinet, and starting with item 1, minutes. Do we confirm the minutes of the previous meeting? That's confirmed. Apologies for absence. There are none. I can see there's a name card there for Councillor Williams, but he hasn't made it. Declarations of interest. Are there any? No declarations of interest. So item 4, public participation, there is none. Item 5, referrals to Cabinet, there are none, I think. Okay. The Cabinet, item number 6, Cabinet forward plan on page 5. Are there any additions to the corporate plan from anyone? No.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Going to item 7, local connection policy, page 6 to 30. Simi.
So this policy is basically an overlay between housing and place. So I'll be more than happy if somebody from place, perhaps, or do you think it's Darren? You want to talk about this one?
So we're happy just to present this briefly to Cabinet. So Julie Abbey Taylor, who's led on this piece of work for us, will just say a few words, and then we can take any questions.
Thank you, Simi. Thank you, Chair. We're bringing before you a local connection policy for affordable housing tenures that are other than rent, so affordable home ownership. The trigger for this report was the introduction of first homes as an affordable home ownership tenure that we have to offer through planning applications that come in. At the moment, there is a local connection criteria for social and affordable rented, but to date there hasn't been any such similar policy in place for shared ownership or any other forms of affordable home ownership. So with the trigger for first homes, the local authority has the ability to impose a local connection criteria on first homes within the first 3 months of marketing. So whilst we were looking at that and how best to bring that forward, we've sought to include all the other affordable home ownership tenures within this policy for members to consider. Sorry, I lost track of what I was written. So the local connection eligibility criteria is detailed in page 17 of your agenda pack. So I won't go through all of those individually. But the aim of this policy is to maximise the opportunity and the benefits to people with a decorum local connection, be that residents or that they're an essential worker and accepting a job opportunity here, so that they have access to those home ownership tenures, particularly if they can't access housing in the private sector. And if approved, the policy will be applied to all housing association and developer-led schemes coming through, as well as any council schemes in the future that will have home ownership. So the policy will particularly assist essential workers access affordable housing, as well as also be applicable to military personnel. So there are 3 options in the report, and option C is the recommendation option for us to proceed. That does include us investigating and pursuing a potential secondary housing register, because we only have one currently for rented tenures. And if Cabinet are minded to approve this policy, then we will be looking at best practice through the Housing Transformation and Improvement Programme to provide a secondary register. The policy, as indicated by Adrian, is also, and by Simi, is also mentioned in the Affordable Housing SPD interim policy that's also on the agenda this evening, hence why it was felt really useful to bring both papers before members at the same time. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer, as long as they're not too difficult.
Any questions around there? Can I just clarify? It looks to me as if this is a real boon in terms of being able to attracts key workers to the borough, which sounds like a good story to me. I mean, that's kind of more of a statement than a question, but thank you for the report. It looks good to me, and Robin has a question.
Well, just further on Adrian's point is on the key workers that at the moment it only really focuses on public sector key workers, and it says that private sector key workers will be considered in the future. Do you know roughly when that might happen?
I think how we're viewing it at the moment, if there was a local employer that presented a case to the council that they had essential workers, then they weren't able to fill those roles without somebody having access to housing, we will look at those. And again, there are very few local authorities that have widened that interpretation to the private sector. But we haven't got a timescale, because I think the first trigger would be an employer coming to us and saying, you know, we actually really are struggling. Can this criteria and definition apply to, might be a particular engineer or you know, anything really, if it's somebody they're really struggling to recruit locally that's already got housing.
I remember probably 35, 40 years ago, the new towns did have a policy that included sort of young professional graduates alongside and police alongside other public sector and teachers and other professions like that, which I think did benefit. That was actually in Basildon that I remember, and it did actually benefit the town quite a lot by attracting all those skills in. So it might be good for selling, you know, for attracting businesses in, if we can tell them that we consider that sort of thing.
Yeah.
As with all things that go on in this council, there's always continuous improvement, and just because we think something's finished doesn't mean it always is.
That's right. I mean, there is a built-in 2-year review of this policy anyway. So obviously, if anything changed within that period, we could always look to bring that forward and propose any amendments at that time. But I think we're confident that this is a big improvement, because nothing exists currently to cover the home ownership products. So if somebody wanted to buy shared ownership that quite a few of our housing associations provide, they can take anybody from anywhere in the country, and you can't necessarily say there's a direct benefit to somebody with a decorum link, and that's what we're trying to establish, to make sure that there's maximising those benefits as much as possible.
Thank you, Julie. So with that, are we agreed that the local connection policy is approved?
Yes, agreed.
Thank you. Thank you. The next bit will be agenda item 8, Markyate Conservation Area Character Appraisal. And if I've guessed from that, yes, it is you, Phil.
Yes, good evening, Chair, good evening, members. So yes, the report relates to the Markyate Conservation Area Character Appraisal, a document which will help applicants and residents to understand the significance, the architectural and historical significance of the area, and so that its appearance can be preserved and enhanced, and it will be a useful tool for officers in dealing with planning applications and on appeals. So the conservation area appraisal document itself is attached as Appendix 1, and within the report, I guess some key sections. Paragraph 3.1 highlights the activities undertaken as part of the 4-week consultation period. And it also details the need for a boundary review. The Markyate Conservation Area was designated in 1969, and there hasn't been a boundary review since then, so it's well overdue. And there are both additions and deletions that are explained and mapped in the appraisal document. Paragraph 1.2 at the beginning of the report highlights that Dacorum has 25 conservation areas. 9 conservation area character appraisals have been completed thus far. Subject to member approval, this would be the 10th adoption. And for information only, in terms of the forward plan, there are further 2 appraisals at a very advanced stage. They've already gone through a consultation process. That's Northchurch and Dudswell. And there are a further 4 or 5 that work has commenced and are at various stages of drafting before initial consultation. And then the remainder will follow in due course with, and there is a forward plan to be developed for those remaining appraisals. But obviously tonight it's about Markyate's turn, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? I'm loath to skirt over Markyate because it's an important settlement in our borough. I will. The question that's on my mind is: have we given any thought to the need for a conservation area in the new town of Hemel Hempstead? Because it's a piece of history, isn't it? So it's a bit off topic.
Yeah. Well, there is certainly. I don't think it is something that's come onto our radar so far. I mean, certainly there is guidance by Historic England in terms of the designation of new conservation areas. I think this would be something that we would need to investigate as part of, as I mentioned, the forward plan of conservation work. We do need to produce the conservation strategy, so that could be considered as part of that.
Just a brief update as well. We have previously gone through the main new town assets across Hemel Hempstead, so there's quite a lot of statues and public art, and we have those listed as kind of special designated items across the town centre and going into the neighbourhood centres. So not looking at the whole geographic area, but certainly those new town features, we've already kind of gone through and appraised in terms of positive contributions to the wider new town area.
Yeah.
So we can circulate that of interest, and as Phil says, we can kind of look forward to the future. But I think sticking to our current position of conservation areas already designated and making sure that they're up to date with a character appraisal is probably a first priority, and then looking forward to a forward plan of work over the future kind of months and years. Thank you.
Okay, so.
Excuse me, Chair.
Well, I was just going to add to that. Yes, I am glad to see this progressing with Markyate, and I did explore around the town or the village recently, and it is quite impressive. You can see some of the old architecture, the timber frame buildings behind the newer facades. It's just in certain places. So there's a lot of features like that which we need to celebrate.
Thank you. So the recommendation on this item is that Cabinet number 1 adopts the Markyate Conservation Area Character Appraisal as a technical guidance for use in development management to inform the core of local plan, and B, a material planning consideration for use in the determination of planning applications. Are we agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. So moving on, thank you, Phil. Moving on to item 9. I've got a bit confused here whether we were going to go to 9, affordable housing, or whether we were going to go to corporate health and safety policy. Does it matter which we do?
No. I've got some health and safety updates.
Okay,
So it's
let's do corporate health and safety policy update.
Good evening, Chair, members. So I'm presenting we've amended and updated the corporate health and safety policy. That's standard practice. That is done annually or every 2 years. We've based this on, we've had a consultant in for a few months who undertook a review of all the health and safety arrangements. Also, we had the TIA audit, which is our internal audit as well, which was upgraded to reasonable assurance. So again, we're making some very good progress in ensuring that the health and safety arrangements are robust and fulfil our requirements. So the policy is just to really document that, to show the new arrangements, put some more responsibilities in there to make sure that any vagueness now becomes more clarity. Okay.
I mean, I think this, any corporate health and safety policy, again, is going to be a living document, right?
Yeah.
But I think this is a really good document to get started with. Pretty comprehensive. And are there any comments? No.
Thank you, Chair.
In that case, the recommendation is that we consider and formally approve the corporate health and safety policy, and that Cabinet notes progress made on the Council's health and safety action plan. Agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Lovely. Thank you. And now to the last item, which is the affordable housing SPD, which is pages 110 to 297. And that one, I understand, is going to be Sarah.
Please, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So the Affordable Housing SPD is attached as Appendix 1, and I'll just take you to a couple of parts of the report. The need for the SPD is set out in paragraph 1.4 in the covering report. 3 reasons: to ensure that the rented affordable housing is genuinely affordable for households in need of such housing. The second, to take account of changed government guidance on affordable housing, including the introduction of first homes you've heard about. And 3, to provide an update and expanded guidance on how our planning policies for affordable housing should be applied. So the SPD looks to address issues that we've come across over the past 10 years of using our kind of current core strategy. So it might be seeking affordable housing in different residential classes, or looking at where we are seeing viability issues, especially of phased developments, and being able to kind of think about later kind of opportunities to be able to kind of look at any clawbacks of affordable housing. So we are taking that experience and our kind of current processes and thinking then in terms of embedding them into this SPD is a really helpful interim step for us in development management to be able to kind of look at planning applications going forward. In terms of how this will sit in with the local plan is heading towards an adoption position towards the end of 2026. Depending on the timing of the consultation for this SPD and the PERDA period that we might see in autumn, we could see adoption of this SPD by autumn 2024 or the end of 2024. So there's a good 2-year position that we can take advantage of this SPD before the local plan comes forward. Paragraph 2.2 sets out that the SPD will be absorbed into the local plan, and making sure that all of these kind of principles will then be bedded into that next local plan. So in terms of if there's approval from this evening, we will then carry out a 4-week consultation, and we'll very much engage with registered providers and kind of key stakeholders within the community to be able to kind of take that forward. And you can see already that we've started kind of engaging with those providers and with relevant departments across the council. So after that, we will then be able to make any further recommendations to the document and take that back through scrutiny, and you will see that again in Cabinet before we kind of make that full adoption process towards the end of 2024. Thank you.
Thanks, any comments, questions from here? I suppose for me, just as this is a public meeting, I just want to draw attention to the usual thing, which is that affordable really should have like speech marks around it. I'm happy to take officer's recommendation as to whether we should actually do that. Probably not. But when we're talking to our residents about affordable housing, it's what they always say, isn't it? You know, that actually in a town, in a borough like this, on the edge of London, affordable, does affordable mean in the context of the power of the economic power of London, or does it mean affordable for me? So just on that, and with no other comments, we'll approve the recommendation that Cabinet approves the draft supplementary planning document, or SPD, for public consultation. And number 2, that Cabinet notes that the final version of the SPD will be presented to Cabinet for adoption towards the end of 2024, following the conclusion of the consultation process. Agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. And that being the last item, the meeting ends at 19:54. Thank you very much.